This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with SYMPHONY X and Trans-Siberian Orchestra vocalist Russell Allen, talking about his latest solo single, Love Her Like I Do, Ava's song. Today we're talking about your latest single. It's Love Her Like I Do, Ava's song. This was released in honor of and in conjunction with Autism Awareness Month, which was April. This song is very personal to you, from what I understand, in the sense you're sharing with the listener your experiences and observations as a father of an autistic child. It also touches upon how you've observed her experiences and the social challenges that she's faced. So why don't you tell me a little more about how this song came together?
It started years ago when she was in, I'd say, middle school for sure. I mean, I had always had memories of her going to elementary school. Early on, you know, she was diagnosed at about a year and a half, and we were fortunate here in my state of New Jersey, where we lived, that we had great support from a lot of government, programs here that were addressing this issue. So we were able to get early intervention. That's what it's called. Basically, you have therapists come into your home. We had 25 hours a week, 5 hours a day, occupational therapists, speech therapists, physical therapists, all sorts of stuff to help Ava sort of make those neurological connections as a little baby. That really helped. I mean, in the beginning, she wasn't very verbal, no eye contact, but through all this early intervention stuff, we were able to get her, to a much better place. And she's very highly functioning now. But back in those days, there was, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear. As parents, it was very, very challenging for us. But as she grew and going into school and stuff, that's when things, started to really, we started to see the social challenges and the social anxiety she was having and all this kind of stuff. And the lack of acceptance from her peers at that time, which is understandable. Kids don't really know how to navigate all this stuff. And it's not a blame game. It's just what I observed. And so when she had come home from school one day, kind of, basically telling me, Dad, I don't understand how I'm supposed to be at. No one wants to interact with me or play with me. And then she was kind of okay with that, I guess, in a way, because she could be in her own world, and she kind of surrounded herself with these characters, if you will, sort of created her own social construct within inside her head, which is super fascinating. And so that's kind of the beginnings of where the song started to take shape. I was recovering from a really traumatic accident that I was in, years ago. And I lost some bandmates and some friends in that. And I had kind of shut down creatively. And I really wasn't sure if I even wanted to do this anymore, be in the business, because it was, being a father and realizing when things like that happen to you, your priorities totally change. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't be out here traipsing around, being a rock star, at this. And then, all these questions. And so, but I had a great support structure with my family and friends in the business who really urged me to get back. And this song was sort of like that, opening the door again, for me creatively. And I felt like, well, if I survived this and I've been spared, thank you, Lord, for that. And I felt, and motivated and inspired to write things that are what I was seeing, what I was experiencing, giving a voice to people like my daughter who are on the spectrum, and also a voice to parents and people in their families that are dealing with that. No one really talks about what they see or what they feel. And so I felt I was doing the right thing with my talent, and forcing, or focusing on that and putting it out there was really cool. So that's kind of how the song started to take shape. And then as she grew, I had the verses pretty early on from that experience that I told you about, from her talking to me and seeing how she interacted. And then, the chorus just kind of came later, when these like colors and things that she would have, make inanimate objects into, Periwinkle's my friend. She tells me this and that. And I'm like, oh, okay, but, so, but, they're, I think, I'm not a psychologist and stuff, but we do have a great one. And, that's kind of how the song started to take place. And her development was was key in me being able to write the next parts of the song as it sort of grew to life. And so it was a long process. The song spent years in the making. I think. Yeah. So
One of the lyrical sections of the song goes into kind of the social interaction issues that she was having. I'm a little disappointed that there was some bullying there, because I feel like the world is a lot better than when you and I were in school when it came to bullying. And there's a lot of focus today on acceptance and empathy. And, you know, the fact that she was still facing that was a little sad to hear.
yeah, I mean, you know, but again, it wasn't. I think, you know, the bullying thing. I have no other way to really just express that or describe it the way she, you know, was telling it to me. So maybe, you know, I phrase that because that's an identifiable thing. You know, when people are being bullied, I know it's like such a, you know, a big topic now, and it wasn't as malicious as it was back in our day. You know, getting your underwear jacked up, you know, as a freshman and all that kind of stuff, you know, all that kind of stupid stuff, wedgie, whatever they used to call it, you know. This was more of like, you know, sort of indirect in a way, you know. She just wasn't being accepted. And so they were looking at her, talking about her and all this other stuff, you know. You know, the boys actually were pretty, you know, nice to her. It was the girls that, you know, the girls are, you know, different dynamic from what my wife tells me. Young girls can be very cliquey and all that. Okay. So that hasn't changed. Okay. But it did happen again in high school. They were throwing some stuff at her on the bus, you know. She's a teenager now. It's just, you know, and her brother, you know, my son Jack is, he's on the football team. He's a, you know, typical high school kid, you know, and popular and all that stuff, and has his friend base and on the football team and plays 3 sports. Actually, he was really upset. He was like ready to go, you know, kick somebody's butt and all that stuff. I was like, whoa. I love that about you, son. But, you know, we don't want that. You don't want to give into that, you know, don't give into the dark side. Right. But he ended up talking to these people, and turned out that it was sort of, they came up with this big story. It was a misunderstanding. We didn't want to, but it happened, you know. And so basically, you know, hey, don't do that kind of stuff. So again, you know, I agree with you in a lot of ways. My son and his friends, they're all on the football team. So, you know, that's still a thing. You know, you don't really want to mess with all the guys on the football team. It could maybe not go your way, you know, down in that school sort of like social, you know, bubble that they're all in. And so to your point, I think a lot of, you know, the kids are more willing to stick up for people and stuff, but they still have that isolation. And, you know, Ava's different, and different is scary, you know, to people, even to adults. Different is scary, you know. So I think, you know, I just wanted to emphasize that is happening. And it's that lack of acceptance, really, in a way that's also, you know, difficult, you know, on people that feel like they're being minimized or marginalized, you know, because of their disability. I don't really see autism as a disability, really. It's just a different wiring, you know. But so yeah, that's why I pretty much put that in there, because it happened, man. You know, this song it happened, you know. So there's no need to sugarcoat it.
I have a son that's on the autism spectrum. He's about the age of your daughter. We kind of saw some signs when he was really young. He wasn't really learning how to talk.
Mm-hmm.
He was lining up his toys, much like you say in the beginning of the song. And he got some, we got some great interventions for him. He's, I would say he's highly functioning at this point at age 18.
Awesome.
And he's, you know, still some things there that he has issues with. What were some of the signs with your daughter when she was young that you said, hey, we may need to look into this?
Well, my wife was the one, you know, that seen it and could sense it. I mean, she was an educator for years. She just retired this year, actually. So now I got a lot of stuff to do around the house. But thank God for her. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit in denial in the beginning. I was like, she's just, you know, she's developing slower. She's going to be fine. the signs were, like, again, the lack of verbalization and eye contact, really, and things like that. It was really hard to kind of get her to focus. And because my wife was, she actually went back and got a second master's degree and certified for learning disability. So, and LD, she got out of the classroom, and then she did the last part of her career, five or so years as LD. So she could see it, and so she really said, "Hey, let's go get this evaluation done and everything." And here in New Jersey, our state is awesome. At least back then it was. I think the programs are still there that helped us really navigate this. And she knew all the right contacts to make, of course, because her being a teacher and stuff. And so those were the early signs, just kind of like things that she had noticed, and I didn't really notice them like she did. So, but we went for the evaluation, and we got it, and we got the diagnosis, and that was rough, man. As you know, I mean, that was a rough day, for both of us. After a while, you just realize you're really chosen, I think, to be blessed with a kid like this, because there's so much potential that they have that the world doesn't really see. I mean, I pointed out the other day, there was a thing came up on Instagram. These people are on the spectrum, or should be, or whatever. And it was like Albert Einstein, and they didn't have it back then, but you could argue maybe he was, based on some of his behavior, right? And of course, Elon Musk is the most recent, aside from all the political nonsense that's going on, and his choices or whatever in that space. You can't deny, his contribution, based that he is on the spectrum. He talked about how he did not have a good go in high school, and that was difficult time in his life. But here's a guy who was able to cope and turn that into, he catches rockets, man. I mean, let's just I don't care. Well, I know he's a troll and all sort of kind of stuff, and I'm not championing anything of his negative behavior, but you can't deny the guy's been a huge. I mean, he made electric cars happen. I mean, they were around, but he was the guy. And that's an autistic person really moving humanity. We might even go to Mars now or wherever because of him, and all this other kind of cool stuff. I am so inspired by those stories, and that's what I would like to the world to see in these people, is the potential for them to be, moving all of us forward in ways that we could never imagine. So I don't know. I mean, that's my internal optimism as a parent, for my child and for yours and for all of them. That's really kind of what was inspiring to me to want to get more eyes on, in our ears, I should say, on this song, and eyes on this topic. So we can not just, I want to involve all these people in our growth, and as we should as a society, and not just, push them aside. And so I don't know how you feel about it, but that's kind of where I'm at, with it.
Absolutely. I mean, you see more and more children kind of dealing with the same issues every day. And, as a father, I was just like you, he's going to get better. It's just something while he's young. And then, you start to see it, and it's tough to talk about. I'm actually glad that you're able to talk about it with me today, because we think internally that, there's a stigma about it. Oh, my kid's autistic. I got to be careful who I talk to about this, because they might not understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went through the gamut of all that stuff. And, the saving grace, I guess, was our son. He's like the angel, of our family. And, he's kind of brought that whole thing, because, I coached football in our town, and Ava was on the cheerleading thing, and she was struggling to be a part of it, but they really kind of embraced her, because my son Jack was like quarterbacking in all those years for the town team and stuff. And so that really helped. I mean, I coached other levels. Like, our program wasn't really into the idea of you coaching your kid all the time. So, and I thought that was great. So I coached, I only got a few years here and there with him over the 7 or 8 years I coached. So I got to know everybody, I got to know the parents, but there was still, lack of acceptance from a lot of the girls, and so with Ava and stuff like that. But because we had that sort of exposure, there was a great support system around her from other parents and from other kids, girls and stuff on the cheer team that looked out for her. And so we had a lot of that help, thank God. And I think that was a huge thing. Because it's a community effort, if you're going to bring people along that are a little different or maybe struggling, and not everybody's like that. Not everybody has that sort of thing. And I get that. But, like to your point, I think for me, and I'm sure you can relate to this as a father, you're kind of, your ego's in the way, like, oh man, my kid is different. Who do I talk to about this? Like you said, you feel like, oh shit, that's on me, man. My bad. I did something wrong to make this happen for my kid, or I created this. And you start internalizing stuff, bro. I know all of that whole thing, and that's obviously it's a dead end road. You're not going to help anybody, especially your kid, when you're thinking like that. And you got to man up, to use the expression and own it, and just start championing it. And that's kind of like what I did, and obviously with this song, what I'm doing publicly, now is just to be able to be vulnerable, not be the tough guy, all the time. And I know I'm this metal guy and all this other kind of stuff, but I'm like you, man. I'm a dad. I love being home. I love raising my kids and watching them grow. And I accept whatever comes my way, and we'll deal with it. That's kind of the way you move forward. So I totally can understand where you're coming from, though, man. It was tough in the beginning, but you got to put your big boy pants on and start moving.
In the end, it's
a blessing. Yeah.
Curse. Absolutely.
It is.
What does Ava think about her song?
She loves it. She loves the fact that, I think, emotionally it's hard for her to kind of connect things. She doesn't feel a lot of things. She has this weird emotional disconnection. That's part of her dealing with being on the spectrum. It's like a spider web, right? So many things connect, and they call it a spectrum. And so she's got a lot of offshoot stuff. So we thought maybe Asperger's, and we're always, analyzing every step of the process. But emotionally, sometimes things hit her really like hard when she's not expecting it. And that song definitely did when she heard it. And then she broke down. She was really crying about it. And she loved it, thought it was beautiful. She saw herself in it. And she, she's so black and white. I love that about, I don't know if your son's like this, but there's no gray area with her. It's just fact, or, 0 or 1. there's no 2s or 3s or 4s. It's all binary. Yes, no, light, dark, black, white. And she said to me, well, Dad, that's not exactly what happened in that particular moment. And I'm like, honey, I know, but I needed to, take some artistic freedom so the lyrics would rhyme and blah, blah, blah. She goes, yeah, okay, but it's close and it's really good. That was after her emotional response. And she also loved the fact that, my sister, her aunt, sang on it with me. So she really likes her a lot, and they have a great relationship. So it was, I think that really got her too. That was the two of us singing, this song about her. And so, it was definitely a family vibe. It was really, really great.
The black and white thing. It'll be 7:56 and I'll be like, geez, it's 8 o'clock already. And my son will be, Dad, it's 7:56.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the stuff that I love, that's Absolutely. The stuff that you I think we as adults, because I think our kids are very similar, very highly functioning, and stuff like that. And what people might call quirks. With adults, though, my daughter can sit in a room with adults and just talk all night and impress the crap out of everybody. She's coherent, she's engaged, and but she does that stimming thing where she needs to get away and stim. I don't know if your son does that. Her thing is music, and she'll just go back and forth in the dining room, or the living room, wherever she can. Just she'll have some vocalization stuff. Yeah, like she's trying to sing along. But that's her way of coping with everything going on in her head, I guess, and so we just got used to it, but in a situation when there's maybe a party or a family thing, or she's with a bunch of adults, she's funny. I used to, in the old house, I had like a campfire vibe. I had like a fire pit in the backyard stuff. We just moved to a new place. I built this studio, all this other stuff. Back in those days when she was little, she'd come out, the guys would be sitting around and she'd be like, "Hey," I'm like, "Oh, hey." And all my friends are like, they know what the deal is. They're like, "Hey, what's up?" So, at the time that it's just way back, when the whole Trump thing was just starting and there's all this politics stuff going on. And she was hilarious. She'd come out and tell jokes. I don't even know where she got all this from, and she's just making a bunch of old men around the campfire just die laughing. And so she kind of like, it got to the point where like every time they'd be over, she's like, "Hey, can I come out and, entertain Ava?" Just, it's not every time, but she looked forward to that because that was really kind of the only social interaction she was having that she was enjoying in her life. And I really thank my boys for, my guy friends, my boys, for their graciousness and allowing her to be that way. And again, I'm so impressed. I'm very hopeful that when she gets into college and in that later stages in her life, she's going to find those people to connect with that are interested in the same sort of things that she's interested in or whatever, and find those common grounds to forge some meaningful relationships, for her. So that's the hope anyway.
Do you see the release of this single as sort of the jumping off point for a Russell Allen solo album?
Everyone's been asking me that. Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt like this song opened the door for me, like we talked about earlier, after I was in this accident, to kind of be creative again in the right way. So, I've written a song, but for my son, that just basically, so just encouraging him to do his best and don't get down when like sports stuff, when he's not, getting the job in this that he wants, or he's not performing well, and it's kind of that kind of stuff. And I'm really into writing about things. I wrote a song called Life I Lead, which is really about me and how I'm traveling and being out there on the road and touching a little bit on what I've been through, and things like that. So the solo stuff's kind of leaning in that direction. It's very sort of personal, and I think because of this song, it's moving in that direction. That'll be more rock stuff, like what you're kind of maybe used to hearing from me, in that way. So I'm kind of excited about that because, again, it's a chance for me to kind of just use music to help me, talk about things that I've been through and things that I see in this world and things like that. And it's definitely, it's definitely a journey. I've obviously been known for these, huge, bombastic, epic, metal journeys, if you will, these prog records that I do with SYMPHONY X. But I also did Adrenaline Mob. I did a lot of different types of music, but this is different. This is, in Adrenaline Mob, I wrote a song called All on the Line with Mike. And that was a little bit about Ava, and how I was going to do my best to make that band or that my career happen, to try and do as much as I could to help her, with financially, into where I'm at now, actually, to try and raise awareness and things like that. And so I touched on it a little bit, but that's where the direction is going, I think, for sure, so that's what I'm doing now, and obviously SYMPHONY X has a new album. That's the priority one thing, but this stuff I kind of already did. I've been sitting around for a while. And so, yeah, I mean, there's really no rush, but there's kind of a rush because, like, by the time the band is ready to kind of get out there again, it'll probably be next year or whatever. Then I don't know if I'm gonna have the time, so I kind of need to use the time in the gaps that I'm working on the band's record to get this done and get that out there. And if it becomes an album, that's cool. I know people are like, why you just release singles all the time? And that's kind of the new formula, I guess you want to call it. But honestly, it's kind of the only thing that really works for me, because if I waited till I had a record, I don't know when it would get done. And so, I'm just being honest, man. So I think it's best just to get the songs out there. And if eventually I have enough, I'll package it into an album, and here you go, everybody. This is a record. So that's kind of what I'm thinking,
I'm going to date us both by mentioning that your last solo album was 21 years ago.
Oh,
it's Atomic Soul.
Yeah.
However, also that year, probably one of the best albums I heard in 2005 was Alan Landy, The Battle. you and Yorn teaming up. I would imagine that you hear a lot about this album from fans that you talk to.
Yeah, yeah. That was an interesting thing because Frontiers was just starting out as a label, and they had approached me about doing this thing with Yorn and with Magnus Carlsen writing the songs and stuff. I was like, yeah, sure. I always looked at it. I did stuff with Ari Lucasen before that, and worked on his records, and I learned so much. It was so much fun, working with other artists and stuff. It's you know, it's great when you could bring that back to what you do with your group or with your own stuff. So everything's a learning process. And so when I did the Alan Lundy albums, that sort of European AOR vibe was something that was new to me. And I really embraced it and had a good time, doing those records. And of course we had a great response on that first one. It's unfortunate that Yorn, and I just never really could get it together to do the stuff live. I saw Jeff Scott Soto's album up there on your wall. I was actually thinking about asking him if he'd want to do it because he's doing everything these days. He's all over the place. He probably wouldn't have time, but there's such a demand for that stuff. I still believe, people would want to see that, see that stuff being played. Yeah, I don't know what Yorn's up to. I haven't heard from him in a long time. So it's sad because I think those records would have been a lot of fun to do some of that stuff, but it's again, it's one of those project things where it's not really a group, and so everyone's got their groups and they got their, it's like a summer holiday record. Everybody gets together and then you go back to school in the fall, and that's kind of what it's like. So we really always had conflicting schedules, but I appreciate you digging that record, and it's definitely one that I'm proud of.
Yeah, I think Yorn just left Frontiers Music, and he's doing something on the side. I forget which label he's with.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about him. And I'm really bad with the social media stuff a lot of times and just keeping up with everybody when I'm home. When I'm out on the road, I do great because I got nothing to do. I'm stuck in the bus, I'm in the hotel. It's like a lot of downtime, so I can post stuff. Hey, here's me doing this, But when I'm home, what am I? Hey, here's me, pulling the weeds out of my garden. Hey, here's me. I know people love that stuff, but that's just not me, man. But so I kind of I don't even go to shows. I tell everybody this all the time. It's like I'll go out and see some friends and they're in town, people that I really, really, have a connection with in the business that are friends, and I'll get out. But I don't, I'm just not. Those days are gone. I mean, I was young. It was great. Going to the city all the time. So New York's right here and all that stuff. But now it's like, oh, going to the city, what a pain, right? That's showing my age, I know you can relate to that. So I just I love doing my gardening when I'm home. I'm playing some golf with my friends, throwing the ball around with my son, and talking to Ava about space and all sorts of intellectual stuff that she's into, and taking my wife to dinner every now and then, maybe on a rock cruise. We just got off the Monsters of Rock. Her and I had a blast on that, and that's kind of what I'm doing when I'm not on the road. So it's hard for me to keep up with everybody. I get a lot of information from people like yourself, and they'll say, "Did you know that so?" I'm like, "Oh no, I didn't know." Okay, cool. Or "Oh, that sucks." I don't know. It's just like, yeah, I just got a lot going on in my home life. It's like a double life, And so when I'm here, I'm here. When I'm there, I'm there. It's kind of the way I do it. That's my quirkiness. I'm probably on the spectrum too, man, for sure. My wife thinks so. So that's for sure.
You've done a lot of work with Frontiers over the last 20 years or so. Are you currently working on anything you could talk about?
Well, yeah, I mean, I recorded last year. We finished an Alan Olsen record, another one. So she kind of filled that void when Yorn kind of stepped out, and we've had some fun with that. Max is still writing great songs. She's a great singer. She's really sweet. Really nice person, and so and she's funny too. I enjoy working with her. And I don't know when Frontiers are going to put that out. I haven't heard anything from them about it, but as far as I know, that I delivered all the tracks, so hopefully that'll come out at some point, unless it came out already and nobody told me, but I highly doubt that. So like I said, so not in the know. But yeah, so that's kind of what's happening with them. They were those guys, are great. I go way back with them, like you said, 20 years. And so, and they've just grown into a monster label. They've got so many acts and so much going on. And it's nice that they kind of, remember little old me from the beginning, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, that's the latest. So nothing else beyond that I'm aware of.
Yeah, they remember you and Jim Peterick and Stryper. That kind of got them off the ground.
Yeah. That Alan Lundy record, I think, did better than anybody thought, in the beginning, for sure. Yeah, that was pretty cool for all of us, and so that was an exciting time. That was back when they would send me they send me binders of their promotion, because back then, 20 years ago, it wasn't the internet like that we know it now, right? So there was all magazines still and things like that. And so you see all that things, the pictures and the ads and all the stuff that they were doing. I say, hey, look, all we're doing for this, and it was great. That was cool. I got more for that than I did for my own band. I nothing against the old label we were with, but it was like, guys, look at that. I show the guys at the band, like, what the hell's going on, man? Like, I don't know. I said basically that, hey, they're starting out. They're a young label, and they're just all in on it, so they just want to show you what, they offered the band stuff over the years, but we never, the guys didn't really want to go for it. Management didn't want to do it. And so, because they became more of, I would say, I guess they're more of a legacy label. They have a lot of, like you said, 80s bands, things like that, 70s rock. That's kind of what they like. And I think I fit that mold because of my voice and stuff like that. But Symphony X is really like a prog metal thing. I don't know if they, it just didn't seem like a good fit for the band. But we were thankful for the offers. And, this is our last album on this contract with Nuclear Blast. So we're going to be out there, shopping and stuff for the next record, because we got a few more in us, I think, and so who knows, maybe they'll call again, but great relationship with those guys.
When do you think we'll hear a new Symphony X song?
Well, we're working on it now. I've been saying this for years, but the truth of it is Romeo needs the time. He just doesn't function like, he's probably on the spectrum too, man. He doesn't function like a normal person at all. I mean, the guy has literally written, I want to say 10 to maybe 15 hours of material for a 55-minute record. He's done this his whole life. This is the worst I've ever seen it. It's like an OCD. It's like a hoarder. He's like a musical hoarder, but it's amazing. He's just a genius. I really am impressed with how far he's come on the orchestration side of things as a composer. It's just mind blowing to me. I was always encouraging him early when we were young. Hey, your guitar playing's killer. Everybody knows that, but bro, this stuff with the John Williams Star Wars stuff, dude, and the Wagner and this stuff's killer, man. Let's put more of this in, put more symphony in Symphony X. That was always my kind of thing to him. And he just ran with it, man. So now he's doing stuff for television and movies on the side. And he just, it's legit. It's and he's brought that, like when I go out and do Alan Lonnie, all this other stuff in this song here and bringing that back, he's bringing back all that into what the new stuff sounds like. And it's just it's just something I've never, it sounds like a movie. It's the only way I can describe it. Like some of the orchestral parts are so well executed that it's I want to hear the movie guys voice in a world where, it's like that powerful, really cool stuff. And so anyway, so much of that. So the first sliver I got was 92 tracks of ideas. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So it's a little overwhelming for the guys in the band sometimes. And, the only thing he really needs from me is to get the lyrics all together. He's got a bunch of lyrics, and some of the guys wrote some stuff, LaPon, myself. And so he just needs that sort of thing from me to help kind of form where this thing's headed, and figure out where that's going. Musically, he knows what he wants to do. But he's the type of guy, if we have to go on a tour, though, he's, the whole band, I mean, what we do is not easy. And so they need to practice for months. I mean, 5, 6 weeks, to really get the motor skills going and learn all those licks again. And some songs, as you know, are 20 minutes long, you know. And so, you know, it's not just something like, hey man, we're gonna do immigrant song and Johnny Be Good and whatever. Hey, we're playing next weekend, you know. That's not us. I mean, I sometimes I wish it was, it'd be so much easier, but we have to take the time to practice a lot of stuff. And for me too, the lyrics, I mean, I got to remember all the stuff and everything. And so that just kills the creative process. But the band's actually doing really well on the road lately. I mean, we've got really good shows. People are showing up. We did a 30-year anniversary. We just wrapped in Latin America. It was amazing. It was some of our biggest crowds down there. For a band that's been together that long, it's, you know, we never had like a big hit or anything. We're just, you know, we're like that stock market ticker that just goes like your 401k over the years, like that, you know, like this, you know. We're not like, oh, success and then down, and then maybe later there's the legacy revival point. Hey, that's not our ticker, you know. Our ticker's been slow and growing. So that's been exciting. So we've been fueling that by being present, being in the market, getting out there and playing, showing everybody we can still do it. And thank God, I can still sing. The guys can still play. And after COVID, you know, we lost a lot of our friends and you know, bands it ceased to exist after all that, you know. So we're really grateful that we've been able to keep it going. So, but it has hindered our creative process a little bit. So we said this year, after this 30-year thing and stuff, we're not booking anything else for 2026, so we can get this thing wrapped up. And so now there's no distractions. Like I said, my stuff is like, I can sit here in a day and just, you know, do what I got to do to get ideas down. It's like I said, personal experience. So I'm just orating things that happen in my life with my solo stuff. With the other stuff, it's more trying to create a character and how can I connect myself to that character. It's a lot more challenging to write for Symphony X than it is to just do like even Ava's song. As it's more challenging emotionally and personally, but it's not an intellectual stretch. You know, it's just, you're just talking about what's happening to you. And so now with the band, I got to put myself in that situation. You know, what would this character be like if a giant monster was attacking him? I mean, you know, I played football. I remember going up against 300-pound linemen, you know, and so that was pretty a daunting task. So I try and do that, man. I try and pull on some things that happen in my life so I can kind of put myself in that frame of mind to express the words in a way that's relatable and believable to the listener.
Well, Russell, those are the questions I have for you today. Your new single, Love Her Like I Do, Ava's song, is out now, and I want to thank you for taking the time to tell me more about it, pulling back a little bit of the curtain on your personal life, and giving me an update on Symphony X.
Well, thanks, man. And I really appreciate you, George, for taking the time to do this interview with me. And I hope the song gets into as many ears as possible and helps our kids, you know, just thrive in this world. It's a team effort. So if we all get out there and get together and do it, we're all going to benefit from it. So thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate you.